we will be ranking linebacker prospects. I have 8 linebacking prospects. How many do you have?
I have 7, but like I have 7 write-ups, but 10 names listed. So I could run through my like 10, 9, and 8 who just missed the cut, so I didn't do any like write-ups or really major evals on them. But Smile Munden out of Georgia, Kane Madrano out of UCLA, and then Kobe King out of Penn State. They're all kind of fun, traitsy guys that I think will get picked.
Yes. One of those guys that you had mentioned was the guy that I teased to you a little bit in our chat. Um, I have one of those guys ranked significantly higher. I ended up
Interesting.
liking him a lot more than he was the last guy that I had watched, and I am glad that I did because he is my linebacker for in this class.
Mm.
Yes, and then the guy that's worth mentioning here. If you want to hear my thoughts on one Jalen Walker, you can go to last week's podcast episode or the defensive end slash edge group that we will be putting out here soon. But Matt will be talking about Jalen Walker in this week's episode. I will start off at 8. 8 for me is Jay Higgins. Uh, in I think my brief synopsis slash summary of him is really the best way to describe him. He's a very smart linebacker, but his mind moves faster than what his body allows him to
Mm-hmm.
do. Again, he's a very smart linebacker, and for his size, he is a physical player. It kind of shocked me a little bit. Again, you see that he's 6 feet tall, 226 pounds. You're like, oh, he can't be physical, but he's just an absolute dog. I think he's a solid tackler with good technique. Showed upside in the blitzing game, and then he's just a high character guy. The Iowa program cannot talk enough about him as a leader. Everyone loves him there. But into the cons again, he's just a small guy who really isn't athletic at all. So I love Jay Higgins, and I don't want to spend too much time talking bad about him, but it's not usually a good look if you're small and not super athletic. And that's what Jay Higgins is. He seems stiff. He lacks high end change of direction, and his long speed just wasn't there. He was able to carry vertical routes down the field better than I thought. But again, he just lacked a lot of that athleticism and size. He just doesn't have a whole lot of physical upside to him. But again, a very smart linebacker out of Iowa and Jay Higgins. Did you have him ranked?
I did not have
Yes.
him ranked. No.
Okay.
I can get into my 7. Pupal out of Ole Miss. The pros, pretty easy. Good speed and movement skills in open space. Has some coverage knocks. Can run at the hip with backs and tight ends, and can close with reaction in zone spots. Shows downhill force as a tackler and taking on linemen when creating, and when creating pressure as a blitzer against running backs in protection. And he has a noticeably high motor. I think Dane Brugler said it best. He was like, there was not a time where you watched Poopall and his jersey was not super muddy and like just dirty. That's the motor this guy plays with. The cons, he's a small and stocky player, sub 30-inch arms. According to Mock Draftable, only 6 players since 1999 have ever entered the draft with sub 30-inch arms at off-ball linebacker. So fascinating. Like it is an outlier in terms of arm length. The leverage for his size needs to get better. Has knockback to him, but often is going to tackle high, leaving him susceptible to tackle breaks mixed with his short arms. I think a lot of guys could showcase some contact balance against him and really bounced off him too often for my liking. And then lastly, coverage discipline and scramble Jill was a real like problem. He just vacated zones sometimes when guys got out of the pocket. He would just leave his man coverage assignment just because a guy got out of the pocket. I think he was just in his head going, I'm going to get him. I'm going to get that MFer, and kind of just forgot about, like, what was my job before? Oh, it doesn't matter. I'm going to get the ball. So that was something fun with him. But yeah, Poopall was a fun watch, and I had to include him in this.
Yes, Poopall is a lot of fun. I have him ranked at 6. And again,
Mm-hmm.
the big thing about him is just being small and having those short arms. But unlike Jay Higgins, he actually shows some good athleticism. I think
Mm-hmm.
he's a good athlete. He shows good closing speed in zone coverage. And then when manning up with your tight ends and running backs, I think he is a clean hand fighter. Not a whole lot of grabby. He just does a good job of using his hands. And again, I think he did show a blitzing upside. But as you said, gap discipline within run instinct just didn't show. Again, he tackles high, which is shocking for a smaller linebacker. And those are big ones. Again, his tackling, his run discipline, and his small stature. But he was linebacker 6 for me. But another smart, high character motor guy for me. So, number 7 for me is Jeffrey Basse. Is that how you pronounce that?
Jeffrey Bassa, yes. I'm excited.
Bassa. That's what it is. Which makes me think you might have him high. He is a converted safety, and that coverage skills translates to him as a linebacker. He is a very fluid mover and has very good zone awareness. He has again, good awareness to see when guys are coming into their zone, when to pick them up, and then when to let that guy vacate his zone and move back onto the safety or whatnot. I think he does a good job taking on blocks, and I think he has a good frame that he can grow into. That being said, he's not very big right now, but you get him into an NFL weight room, and I think he can really put on weight and really become jacked and can, again, really grow into that frame. I think he struggles against physical pass catchers, specifically your more physical tight end, a guy like Tyler Warren. He has shorter arms. He plays with a high pad level, and then he struggles. Sorry, working through traffic when covering man. But again, he's just a very good coverage linebacker. And again, that should be no surprise when you take into account that he was a converted safety.
Yeah, I've bossed it all the way up at 4. I was like, this was a guy that I think he's gonna be on my guy list because like I haven't really sifted through interviews the way I did for him. Like I wanted to hear this guy talk because my number one pro for him was off the page intelligence. He handled the communication. He was so smart in zone feel and zone IQ, and he just sifted through gaps in the run game very well, and he was never caught flat-footed on like a play action fake, stuff like that. He always felt like he was in the right place, in the correct spot, even in the Senior Bowl for me. He was a good run defender, sheds well for his undersized frame, doesn't have many missed tackles, a 9.6 rate according to PFF, and he takes coordinated angles. He was a great sideline to sideline mover in coverage. Just overall, like he was just a fascinating watch for me, being a converted safety and being smaller. I just thought he was in the right place all the time, and I was just fascinated by him. Cons, he's small and he's not an overwhelming athlete, so that might limit him at the next level. Play strength is a concern, but he has the frame to grow into. So, as you were mentioning, I think you can put some upper body weight on him specifically into that stuff to help the play strength. And then the short arms cause fits with really like shifty, and I made this word up, but like geary running backs like Genty, where Genty can just accelerate, stop, and start the way he does to kind of tee you up like a boxer and just break your tackle. He did it to Bossa once in the Boise State game, but overall, like that is going to be something he struggles with. And then lastly, the pad level at the point of attack will need to be refined with how just short he is. He's like 6'1". It can become a strength if he figures it out in the run game. But overall, yeah, Bassa, just watching him and just like I said, I'm repeating myself, but him being in the right spot all the time, it is an intelligence position for me. If it's the way I watch Fred Warner and guys like that, it's just like there is a coordinated running with your hair on fire kind of thing with those guys, and it's just I want that guy to be able to communicate and just be overly intelligent as an off-ball linebacker, and I think Bossa fit that bill for me better than nearly anybody in this class.
There you go. Linebacker 6 for me was Pooh Paul. So who's your linebacker 6?
Danny Studsman out of Oklahoma. He was an interesting player. Pros, he's a huge and jumbo-sized player. 6'4", 240. Just ideal, broad linebacker. Good athlete with the speed and agility desired from someone with a big frame, and he can pressure the quarterback from the linebacker spot. He has a plus in the communication department, doing it at Oklahoma forever. And then this last one for the pros. Played so many effing snaps. 2,500 plus snaps as a 3-down backer. They lined him up as a dime backer. They lined him up in nickel. They lined him up in base. He was their everything, every man, and he has the body type to do it. So I expect an NFL team to at least try it. The cons, my number one con was he's a weirdly awful run defender. Like everything. He gets fooled in gaps constantly, isn't a reliable tackler in space, and doesn't have the play strength to really knock back even as big as he is. Like it was awkward watching him try and stop the run. But it's like you have the frame to do it, dude. Like you can get this. And then sideline to sideline range was limited to nothing at the next level. And then processor for like play action fakes got him multiple times, and that'll need to get better. But overall, like the size athlete thing, like run and hit backer, like he's gonna be drafted pretty high, and I'm gonna understand why.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, me and you see him again very similar. He was my linebacker 5, again, just because that one guy ended up sneaking his way in. Again, you basically said everything that I would have said. Again, has that good combination of size and speed. He can lay the wood. My lord, he can really knock someone out, which should not be surprised. With his size, I think he does a good job manning up, and again, that's specifically in man coverage schemes against your running backs and tight ends. And again, for his size, it should come as no surprise to anyone that he is a good blitzer. As you said, it's him in his run, his ability to play the run. Again, it's just oddly confusing. Again, he gets moved off of blocks or moved by blocks way more than what you would like. He falls for fakes a whole lot of time, and then I think he also gets lost in zone coverage. He kind of doesn't. I don't know if he doesn't know where he's looking, if he's just unaware, but he just gets lost within that zone coverage. And then you had Jeffrey Bassa at 4, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Who was your linebacker 5?
Demetrius Knight.
Ooh, okay. Here's my LB3. If you want to get into
3?
him. Yeah.
Demetrius Knight, the pros. I think this is probably weird because I have a different 2 than you, definitely, with Walker in here. So yes. We kind of see Knight in the middle of this linebacker class pretty closely. The pros size matched with a thick overall build, great run and hit backer. I think there's a ton of those guys. I think there's a ton of like not really Mike backers outside of maybe Bassa for me, but just a ton of dudes who just run and hit and can really do it at an effective level. Like just hair on fire, go get the guy. He has good diagnose in the run game and keys with correct timing. strong at the point of attack for a backer. Hands are made of stone, and the the long arms flash an extension in one-on-one combat. Smart, reliable tackler in open space, drops the pad with intent and wrap up ability. And then the cons, like, frankly, loved him as a run and hit guy, loved him in the run game, hated him as a pass guy. Did not like him as a pass coverage guy. Doesn't have great
Mm-hmm.
awareness in zone. Gets left out to dry in certain matchups in man, and doesn't possess great sideline to sideline stuff to drive on the ball and make consistent production, which is like pass breakups and interceptions. The hips are tight and not fluid, and doesn't change of direction too well when he's going out to the flat to try and guard a running back, or go up and I got to go that corner route to stop that tight end. Like, things like that, really shifting outside of his range was a problem for me in pass coverage. And then lastly, like, I don't really do this, but he's 25 and he feels limited. Like, he feels like
Mm-hmm.
a limited player. So when it's like that, it's I don't really want to bring up age, but for this guy, I kind of have to, because I don't think I'm getting a limited product already. Like, where guys who are kind of older, I'm expecting maybe a finished product. Okay, this is what you are. I see what I get. And for him, it's a great run and hit guy. It's a great run defense guy. It's a great guy I want to put in base coverage, but there's no way you're seeing 3rd and 7.
Yes. No. Again, we see him in very similar. I think he is a guy that has good athleticism. I think it can at times translate to him being good in coverage, but as you had mentioned, he struggles again with that awareness in zone, and then just ability to match up in man. But I think he has. Um, Again, good athleticism, good length. I think he has a very quick trigger when it comes to run, getting in the gap, and just filling it. Responsibility. And again, a very solid tackler. That being said, again, he's older, like you had just mentioned, 25. How much is there more room for him to grow, especially at that age? I think size is a concern. He's a very dense guy, but he's not a
Mm-hmm.
very big guy. And again, that coverage, he doesn't have lateral quickness to really keep up in man, doesn't have the awareness to be good in zone. And then for a guy who's very good in the run, he didn't do a very good job shedding blocks as much as I would have
Mm-hmm.
liked. But yes, we see him again, very similar, good in base coverage. Again, very good run and hit, as you had said. So, all right, drum roll. My number 4, Smile Munden Jr. I was just in love with the tools that this guy freaking flashed on tape. It was ridiculous. Again, I barely knew who this guy was before I went into this process. But again, the tools that he flashes on tape is absolutely ridiculous. He's a lengthy guy with true sideline to sideline speed and has a very good athleticism. I think he had solid to good technique when tackling, didn't really miss a whole lot of tackles. But again, has good weight or a good frame to add weight, and that athleticism really allows him to be a solid coverage linebacker day one in the NFL. But I think he struggles in the run game when it comes to take on those blocks. He has a long laundry list of injuries, and he's just not the best or he's not the best blitzer. But again, with his ability to tackle, ability to fill in the holes, especially with his length and athleticism and coverage, I think this guy is a guy that not enough people are talking about. He will find his way onto my guy list because I think he has all the traits and already has enough football IQ to step in and be a very good 3-down linebacker almost immediately when he steps into the NFL. And I'm a bit confused why people aren't as high on him as I am. Can you clear a little bit of that up for me?
I think it's a lot of projection for me. I think the play strength stuff and the injuries overall is just limiting for me. I think everything you said as a pass coverage guy, I would agree with. I think he can step in the door and he can be a productive pass guy, but overall it's just filling out that weight and filling out that frame that is going to take time and the injuries. So no, I completely get it, but it's just it's again it's he is a projectable player more so than a finished product and like an intelligent guy, as I prefer in this department.
That's fair enough. Um, he I hate to say this because I love him as a prospect, and I also love this player as a prospect coming out. And again, I'm not making the one-to-one comparison as how I think he will project going into the next level as a player. But as a prospect, he reminded me a lot of Jamin Davis. I watched him and I was like, this
Mm.
guy, this guy is I think he reminded me again. He gave me heavy shades of Jamin Davis. They struggled with similar things, but they were both uh, more raw but athletic players at the linebacker position. And as you said, he has that projection, and that didn't work out for Jamin Davis. So I'm wondering how much of that translates as well, and might be why his stock might be a little bit lower. So, uh, your linebacker, I guess 3 for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
My three is Carson Schlesinger out of UCLA. The pros, good athlete with the frame, the speed, the acceleration to succeed at the next level. I think he was good in coverage with both man and zone. Reliable tackler, registered a 7.6 missed tackle rate. Uh, Flashes intelligence in his processing of run and pass tough. Rarely is caught flat footed in those instances. The cons, he was not an overwhelming force of nature in the run and hit category. Physicality could go up a gear. The thing, what was weird is like people were shocked that he was 240. I don't know what he played at. You know, he looked kind of tighter, so maybe he was playing in the the high 220s into the 230s and really beefed up for the combine, or he was just always playing at 240 and just never really showcased the physicality that you would desire from a guy who's 240. But it's interesting. He had fine hip fluidity, and change of direction gear was a minus. And then only 1 year of production as a former walk-on, still learning the position as a whole, and he's gonna be a development. I think the last 2 years at UCLA, he had like 200 plus or 200 snaps or less, and this year he had over 700 this year. So it's just still figuring it out. I really like him. If you can put some, just like Hulk serum in him and make him angry to where he uses that frame to really be physical and go and hit people, yeah, he'd probably be up there close to 1 for me. But he's stuck at 3 right now. I don't think that's a bad spot.
Yes. Again, he'll be 2 for me. Demetrius Knight was 3 for me, and I don't have uh, Jalen Walker on my list. So that's why Carson Schlesinger is 2 for me. And I apologize if you guys can hear the tornado sirens in the background. Fingers crossed you cannot hear them. But
Yeah, you're all
wish
good,
Bloomington, wish Bloomington best of luck. That being said, the reason I think people were surprised by that 240 weight was because UCLA had him listed at 225. And most of the time, colleges end up actually having their players listed way higher than what they are versus lower. Like that's the same thing that you had seen with Mason Graham. Michigan had him listed at like 320 and he weighed in at like 288, which
big difference.
nevertheless. Yeah, yes, big difference. But again, see him again, very similar. I think he's a good athlete. I think he ran a 4.7 at the combine, but I think he runs much faster when the pads are actually on. And I think he translates that athleticism and speed much more to the playing field speed and playing speed than he does true testing numbers there. Uh, I think he's smart when it comes to the run game. Again, sometimes he gets washed out, takes bad angles, can't really get off blocks. But I think he does a good job diagnosing what the play is. I think he shows good upside with his athleticism in zone. And again, he has that sideline to sideline range because of that athleticism. And again, as I said, bad angles, struggles to get off blocks. Has good tackling technique, but doesn't really lay the boom. He isn't a super hard or physical player. And then again, that playing time, he didn't really get any substantial amount of snaps before this year. But yes, we again would have ranked him at the exact same, if not for Jalen Walker.
All right, it's time for my number 2.
Yes.
All right, it's time for Jalen Walker again. All right, so we did Jalen Walker last week, and you had him ranked 5th or 6th with the edge rushers, which I probably comparatively would if I ranked him as an edge. I ranked him as an off-ball linebacker. The pros, he's a freaky run and hit athlete, man. Truly side-to-side stuff was unique. He has a high motor that is always moving and looking to find the ball. Many, coverage pressures and just batted balls, just running around as a super athlete does at Georgia and just makes plays. And then lastly, you mentioned him, talking about Devin White. I think Jalen Walker is the ultimate blitz backer. I thought there were so many times where it's just, disguise blitzes, things like that, where he's blitzing as an off-ball guy. And I don't know if it was we don't want to put him at edge. I don't know if it was this is where he's truly unlocked. But they did it a lot. And then the cons, he's an awkward in-between frame. Like, he's shorter. He's 6'2". He's broad that, he's short and broad. Some see him as an edge. I see him as an off-ball. He played 311 off-ball snaps this season compared to 249 edge snaps at UGA. And it's fascinating to see what an NFL team drafts him as. The most common comp you're going to see with Jalen Walker is likely going to be Nolan Smith. So I was fascinated by that. I was interested. I was like, all right, Nolan Smith. Ben, how many slot / box snaps in his career do you think Nolan Smith had at Georgia?
Oh God.
I'm putting you on the spot, and that's not fair. But so I'll tell you, he had 51 total, both in the box
I was
and
gonna
the
guess
slot
100,
combined. Jalen Walker had 300 this past season. So it's like,
because he's Devin White.
And it's like, I'm trying to get it through my head where it's like, okay, he's a physical athletic freak. I understand that. But even Georgia, the place that Nolan Smith was like 220, 230, and we threw him at edge all the time because he was such a good run and hit edge. Where Walker, who is even bigger than that, he's taller than that because I think Nolan Smith's like 6'1", is playing off ball 300 snaps. So it's like, I feel like I'm trying to read what Kirby is doing that. There's a reason this guy didn't play more edge. There's just a reason. Even in a season where Mykel Williams is hurt, even in a season where it's just this constant rotation as they always do, he only played 250 edge snaps and never, until... So, again, he's an interesting player that I'm just, Daniel Jeremiah today comes out and is like, oh yeah, he moved him up into his top 5. And I'm like, how? How are we doing that? He's not working out. We're not. I continue to watch. We might get to the point where Jalen Walker passes Jackson Dart of times I've watched a certain player because I'm just trying to figure it out. I just want to know what everyone else is seeing because there's so many people who are smarter than me and been doing this longer than me that have him in their top 5 players, and I can't even put him as my number one off-ball linebacker. That's also because I love the number one player. But yeah, Jalen Walker. I feel like I rambled too much about Jalen Walker, but that's the last time we're gonna do that because there's no reason to keep griping up this tree anymore with Jalen Walker.
We may have already slandered him enough based off last week's episode. But yeah, to Jalen Walker, and this will be the last thing. I do think he has very high end explosion and twitch to him. Immediately could be like a top 5, top 10 guy when it comes to that category specifically. And it's whether or not you think that can actually translate and what he can do with that elite trait that he possesses. So,
yeah.
And then to no one's shock, to no one's surprise here, both of our number one prospects here within this linebacker group is Jihaad Campbell. He is just the perfect blend of height, weight, speed. He really does pretty much all of it very, very well outside of one thing. And I'll get into that in just a second. I think he does a very good job of reading the QB's eyes within pass coverage, which really shows nuance and the ability to do that at a high level. I think he flashed some very, very, very good upside as a pass rusher, and I think he is a good, strong, solid tackler. That being said, the two things, and they can maybe go hand in hand with one another. I think he needs to have just improved overall football instinct / IQ. And then he wasn't trusted to be the green dot player within that Alabama scheme. He wasn't the one calling the plays. And again, I think those two kind of go hand in hand. But just from what he put on tape, he has all the physical upside that you want to see for a player taken within the top 15 to 20 picks, but then he also had a good tape to back that up as well. If he was in a class 10 years ago, for example, he would be a top 10 pick in this class. And I'm not even completely ruling out him being a top 10 pick in this class. The only reason he might not be is because he plays the linebacker position. But again, he's a true freak of nature in every sense of the sentence.
Yeah, you took the first phrase out of my mouth. A freak of nature athlete that translates to the field. Has true run and hits stuff in open space and has dangerous closing speed into the backfield. He's a good cover backer with the way he positions his eyes mentally on the quarterback and just the way he locates his body against his assignment in like man coverage, like tight ends, slots, running backs, etc., etc. And then he's a reliable and strong tackler at the point, can make freakish tackles that shouldn't have a chance of possibility, alignment versatility, and good motor. He played 781 snaps this season in 13 games, played in the bowl game against Michigan, and he lined up outside the shoulder of the tackle as a true edge rusher for 112 snaps. That is a 14% rate. So they threw him out at edge. They said, oh, you can do that too, just like I mentioned with Jalen Walker. And then lastly, the unreal production, over 50 plus solo tackles, 5.3 missed tackle rate, 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, an interception, just overall just a box score stuffer. And then lastly, like the cons, you mentioned them perfectly. He thinks too hard and will get caught watching, and it's mostly mental mistakes. He gets stand still sometimes. Wasn't the mic backer, so he wasn't the communicator of the defense. And then lastly, just throwing it on top, shedding blocks in the run game was not his strong suit, the hand technique, stuff like that. But to play on your last point about being a top 10 pick, Jihaad Campbell is going to be a top 8 player for me. I love this player. Mm-hmm. I will go to bat for this player. I don't know where he's going to go. Like, any of us don't know where anybody's going to go. But this guy, all this process, like, I liked him. It was that fun thing where it was like, I liked watching him play. And it's just like, how's that going to translate? And then you start getting closer and closer to the date, and it's just like, I am enthralled with this player, and that's how I feel about Jihaad Campbell. And I'm just excited to see where he goes because he could really take over the linebacker position for me.
Absolutely. To your point, too, I think of all the linebackers that I had watched, over the last week or so when it comes to really digging into this position, he was the only linebacker that I saw that also covered out of the slot. Again,
Mm-hmm.
throughout this process, we talked about, they can cover tight ends, they can cover running backs, but you never mentioned them covering the slot guys. Jihaad Campbell can do that, and he showed he can do that at a good to high level in college. Again, he is just so much fun to watch. The more I watch him, the more I just fall in love with him as a prospect. Uh, really can't say enough good things about him. And yes, will definitely be a top 10 prospect. It's just a matter of will he be taken in the top 10. From 8 to 1, it was Jay Higgins out of Iowa. Jeffrey Basse, again, I know I'm saying that wrong, but that's all right, out of Oregon. Paul out of Ole Miss at 6. Danny Stutzman out of Oklahoma at 5. Smile Munden Jr. out of Georgia at 4. Demetrius Knight out of South Carolina at 3. Carson Swessinger out of UCLA at 2. And Jihaad Campbell out of Alabama. Roll Tide at number 1.
7, Paul. 6, Danny Stutzman. 5, Demetrius Knight. 4, Jeffrey Bassa. 3, Carson Swessinger. 2, Jalen Walker. 1, Jihaad Campbell for me.
There you go. Well, that wraps up the linebacker and